beautiful day outside. I hope you've been able to get out and enjoy it, or we'll have some time this afternoon or this evening to do so. I have hat hair, so I'm going to keep my hat on. But I just wanted to reach out to you and share with you a devotion that I read yesterday. It's in the Jesus Calling devotional, but it was actually yesterday's devotion, but it's really speaking to me today, so I just want to share some thoughts with you around that. It says, I am calling you to a life of constant communion with me. Basic training includes learning to live above your circumstances, even while interacting on that cluttered plane of life. You yearn for a simplified lifestyle so that your communication with me can be uninterrupted. But I challenge you to relinquish the fantasy of an uncluttered world. Accept each day as it comes and find me in the midst of it all. Talk with me about every aspect of your day, including your feelings. Remember that your ultimate goal is not to control or fix everything around you, which is a challenge for many of us. But it is to keep communing with me. A successful day is one in which you have stayed in touch with me, even if many things remain undone at the end of the day. Do not let your to-do list, written or mental, become an idol directing your life. Instead, ask my Spirit to guide you moment by moment. He will keep you close to me. So if that doesn't speak to the context of our life in these days, up until the coronavirus outbreak, we were really good at leading busy, complicated lives. And I imagine for many of us, it was all too often that we would say things like, we wish we had time for X, Y, and Z. Whether that was going to church or studying the scriptures, maybe getting into a Bible study, having time to pray, even having time for family, but we were just too busy. And I think this quarantine has been a bit of a wake-up call. And don't misunderstand me, I don't believe that God caused the coronavirus, but I do believe that while we may be feeling like our lives have been interrupted, that God is reaching out to us in these days and, reminding us that we do not have to live our lives in chaos. That we're not wired for that. And yet we have been so busy building up our lives and worrying about ourselves and our futures that we have pushed out the most important thing. And it reminded me of what the prophet Haggai said to the Jews as they returned from their exile and was rebuilding Jerusalem and the temple. And I just want to read to you from Haggai chapter 1, verse 3. This is what he said. Then the word of the Lord came through the prophet Haggai. Is it a time for you yourselves to be living in your paneled houses while this house remains a ruin? Now this is what the Lord Almighty says. Give careful thought to your ways. You have planted much, but harvested little. You eat, but never have enough. You drink, but never have your fill. You put on clothes, but are never warm. You earn wages, only to put them in a purse with holes in it. This is what the Lord Almighty says. Give careful thought to your ways. Go up into the mountains and bring down timber and build my house so that I may take pleasure in it and be honored, says the Lord. So the Jews had attempted to rebuild the temple, but they had experienced some conflict and became discouraged. So they decided they were going to sort of push the temple off to the side, and they were going to focus instead on getting their own affairs in order. So they devoted themselves to building their houses, planting their crops, and just meeting their own wants and needs. And approximately 18 years pass before Haggai gives his message. So people who had returned to Jerusalem as children are now adults. And that's a long time for God to be on the back burner. And the fact that the temple remained unfinished just kind of showed the lack of value in God's presence among them. So it's possible that many of these kids grew up to be adults that barely knew who God was. The people were so busy focusing their lives on their own lives and what was important to them that they had pushed out the most important thing. And yet they had little to show for all their toil because they chose to live for themselves. You know, at the start, they had great intentions, but they soon slipped back into old idolatrous patterns and selfish behaviors. So while life has sort of come to a standstill, you know, as we're waiting for this storm to pass, I want to encourage you now to start building those rhythms in your life that maybe you have pushed to the back burner up until this point. Get into the Word every day. Make time to be in prayer. Enjoy this time with your families and do things together that are meaningful, things that glorify God. Make connections with people, even if you can't physically connect with them. You know, make time for phone calls and writing letters. Make relationship a priority in your life. So get your priorities straight and align your values with God's purposes and plans. And do it now so that when the quarantine is lifted, you know, when we are freed to return to the lives that we knew before, that those sacred rhythms will then be a big part of who we are, that we will be, that we won't easily slip back into idolatrous patterns, you know, that we're going to be more intentional about keeping the important things in the center and building our lives around that we will relinquish a life that is simple and not so easily interrupted. So a great place to start with building those sacred rhythms in your lives is reading a daily devotional. So as I mentioned before, I read the Jesus Calling devotional. My children and I have started reading this devotional together. It's called Foundations, and it's 12 biblical truths that shape a family. And it's truths like be an encourager, give generously, walk wisely that Christ might be visible, cultivate praise, forgive one another, think of others as God does, keep your hope in heaven, strive in grace. And these are great reads, and they're short, so you know, if you have children, this will easily keep their attention, and it's impactful. It has a memory verse every day that you meditate on and some questions that you can discuss together at the end of the reading. So I do recommend this, but there are many great devotionals out there. So I would love to hear what you or your family may be reading right now together, any devotionals, any books to help you establish those sacred rhythms in your lives. I would love to hear what you are doing in your home. So please feel free to comment below with what you and your family are doing together. And again, I hope you enjoy this beautiful day. God bless you. Be healthy, be safe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.